Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session we are going to see current affairs of 15th November 2025. Before getting started, I want to make a small announcement. We in our academy we are going to start new anthropology batch from 25th of this November. Every day you will be having 2 to 2.5 hours of classes and the duration of this course is 4 months. Along with that you will be having daily answer writing practice and also weekly test guys. So if you want to know further details regarding this course, you can contact us on this number 8074765513, or else you can directly visit our academy which is located in Ashok Nagar exactly above Vikas Book Center, and you can directly talk to me guys. Okay, now let us see the important topics of the day. And today is Saturday, so there is no text and context and there is no opinion page. Apart from that, results of this Bihar elections were out. So most of our paper grabbed by this election news only. That is not at all important from your examination point of view. Only the articles which are important from your examination point of view, we are going to see in this class. Okay, first topic it is about data privacy law comes into effect 2 years after parliament approval. So you have to see about what is the data privacy law in our country, what are the provisions, what is the significance. This topic is important from governance and as well as polity point of view from GS paper 2. And next topic is India is pursuing FTAs with multiple countries. So here the key word is free trade agreement. And here you have to see India is going to have this free trade agreement with which countries. Here you have to know about what is free trade agreement, what are the advantages and what are the challenges of this free trade agreement. And this topic is important from economy point of view from GS paper 3. And next topic is Gujarat Ambaji marble gets GI tag for its quality. So whenever you are getting this GI tags in news, there is a very high chance of getting prelims based question from that. And apart from that, you have to see what this GI tag is about, what are the advantages of getting GI tag. This topic is again important from your economy from GS paper 3. And next topic is the Great Nicobar project and the ministry in knots. So again, this article is about routine of Great Nicobar project, and there is one more article regarding what are the challenges regarding this Great Nicobar project in our news today. So we are going to see about that in detail. That is from your GS paper 3 under environment and ecology. Our next topic is flexible inflation targeting, a good balance. So here this article is talking about the flexible inflation targeting model that we implemented in our country. We have to see what is that model is about and how that model is working in our country. And that is important from your economy GS paper 3 point of view. And now let us see each and every article in very great detail from both prelims and as well as mains point of view. Online students, please don't skip this video. Please do watch until last. Okay, see this article guys, read out the title. Data privacy law comes into effect 2 years after parliament approval. What is the keyword? Keyword is data privacy law. Actually that is nothing but DPDT Act. Please make a note. It is DPDT Act. What is the full form of this DPDT? Anyone? Digital Personal Data Protection Act. 2 years back we got approval. That means in which year? DPDT Act of 2023. Actually in 2023 this bill, digital personal data protection act was passed in our parliament in year 2023, and now in 2025 it is going to come into effect. Okay, so if you see this infographic here, this article mainly says that one important Supreme Court judgment that you have to remember here, that is K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India case. Okay, please make a note. K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India. K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India case happened in year 2017. The verdict of this case came up in year 2017. In that case, Supreme Court gave a landmark judgment. Supreme Court said that right to privacy is also fundamental right, which comes under Article 21 of our Indian Constitution. So after this judgment only we came up with this rules of protection of data, because data is nothing but it is related to your privacy, especially personal data is very important to identify a person, right? So that data is also comes under part of right to privacy, and protection of that personal data is now the responsibility of government, because Supreme Court gave this judgment that right to privacy is a fundamental right which comes in 21. So later on our government came up with this data protection bill, and they introduced in the parliament, but it has not been passed after this 2017. Finally in 2023 this digital personal data protection bill had been passed, and that bill became an act in year 2023. And in January 2025 we came up with the enforcement of this act, and full enforcement came up now, guys. So because of this is the news. So here you have to remember about this KS Puttaswamy judgment, and apart from that you have to see which committee recommended for this personal data protection. Please make a note, that is B.N. Sri Krishna committee. B.N. Sri Krishna committee led for the foundation of data protection bill in year 2018, after once the judgment came in year 2017. So if you see the series of the steps, 2017 Supreme Court gave the judgment, and it said right to privacy is a fundamental right under Article 21. And later on in 2018 B.N. Sri Krishna committee came up for the foundations for this draft data protection bill, and later on it passed in year 2023, and it became act in year 2023, and finally in 2025 we are going to come up with the enforcement of this act, guys. Okay, now let us see this article in detail. Okay, before saying this article, what you have to see from examination point of view? First, you have to see what is this Digital Personal Data Protection Act is about. And next, you have to see what are the provisions of this act. And next, you have to see what are the advantages of this act. And next, you have to see what are the challenges. And from this topic you can expect mains based question, not a prelims based question, guys, and you have to know in detail regarding this act for sure. If you see this article, it is saying that Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 represents India's first comprehensive data privacy legislation. It is the first ever law in our country which focuses on data privacy. And what is the important aim of this? It wants to safeguard personal data. Why? Because nowadays digital economy is increasing. We are using what are the apps that are available in the Play Store, and even we are going for digital transactions. We are using digital apps for the payment, etc., whatever it may be. And even we are storing our WhatsApp or our passwords, especially in certain apps. And even we are giving permission for the different apps to access our mobiles, to take the contacts, to see the messages, to see the photos, whatever it may be. So because of this, what is happening? There is a threat to privacy. Because of this, our government came up with this Digital Personal Data Protection Act, focusing on especially digital economy is increasing violations of right to privacy, guys. Okay, I'll give you one small example how this digital economy is affecting right to privacy. For example, you are opening your mobiles and you are searching for any product. For example, chappals, or for example, any book, for example, laptop or any electronic gadget, whatever it may be. You searched and you're not interested, and just you leave it. And after, whenever you are using that Google or whenever you're browsing, you will be getting targeted advertisement of the product that you have searched. Yes or no? So because of this, if you are giving information in that so and so website, obviously what happened? It will be grabbing your information. So because of this, now digital economy is creating violation to your right to privacy, guys. If you see the details, this article is saying that India's journey towards data privacy framework began with Supreme Court judgment in year 2017. What is that? KS Puttaswamy versus Union of India judgment. In this judgment, Supreme Court said that right to privacy is also comes under Article 21, and it is a fundamental right. If you see about this act, it is India's first comprehensive data protection law, and it is focusing on providing a framework for handling of digital personal data. An important goal here is to safeguard individual privacy while permitting lawful data processing. So it will provide or it will ensure the right to privacy for citizens, and even on another side it will be balancing lawful data processing, like which kind of data that organization can collect and how can they process data and how can they use that data. So it will be balancing both right to privacy of the people and as well as data processing of the companies. It enacted nearly 6 years after Supreme Court 2017 judgment case. If you see the purposes or like important provisions, first one is applicability. So this act applies to digital personal data processed within India. That means if there is any company which is collecting your data, so they have to store data in India only, not outside India. And next one is they have to process data in India only, and they have to give proper informed consent to you, like before collecting the data itself they has to tell you for what they are collecting the data and for which purpose they will use that data, so that they have to ensure that there is no misuse of your data. And next one here is consent. So personal data can be processed only for a lawful purpose. That too, you have to give the consent. Consent is nothing but before you are giving the data, at last they will be giving you one column. Yes, I gave my data voluntarily, and you will be giving this your signature there. That is called as consent. And next one here is we have children or we have persons with disabilities. Can they give the consent? No. For those children and persons with disabilities, it is a responsibility of their guardians to give the consent to use the data of the children and as well as people with disabilities. And next one is data principles. Individuals who use this personal data is being processed have the right to access information, request correction or deletion, seek grievance redressal mechanism, and nominate a representative in the case of death or incapacity. That means nothing but you gave your data and that person will be processing your data. For example, at any point of time, if you want to protect your data, if you want to remove your data from the database, you can approach them and you can make your data deleted there. Or if you want to make any corrections in that data, now you have the permission to correct that data. And if that person dies suddenly, means he has to keep any representative before death. That means he have to give the nominee before the death of that person is. And this one is we have Data Protection Board of India. This act it also provides for the establishment of Data Protection Board of India by central government, and the members of this board will be having tenure of 2 years, and even they get eligible for reappointment as well. So what are the functions of this board is they will focus on monitoring of compliance. That means if companies are collecting the data, whether they are following the rules and regulations or not, whether they are violating any provisions or not, they will be having complete compliance monitoring. And this one is if they are violating means obviously they will impose penalties on them. And even if there are any grievances means nothing but any questions or any queries, they have to address the queries or questions of this customers. And what are the concerns? Concerns here is excessive state exemptions. This act grants many exemptions to government. State, enabling data collection, data processing, retention beyond necessity. So again, it is violating fundamental right, that is right to privacy. Here government is having exclusive power. Government is exempted, but private companies are not exempted. That is discrimination based on private entity or government entity is happening. And second one is absence of crucial data rights. This act omits essential rights like right to data portability. That means they can transfer personal data for other things. That is also one important problem. And next one is unrestricted cross-border data flow. So this act which also permits free transfer of personal data to most countries with restrictions only at a discretion at the government raising data security and sovereignty concerns. That means this act is saying that yes, you can transfer this data to other countries for processing, but only if the data is having any threat to government or security and sovereignty, they cannot send that data. Again, there is one more problem with this act. And this one is there is lack of harm prevention measures. So this law explicitly address harm such as identity theft, financial frauds, or discriminatory profiling, leaving data principles vulnerable. So because of this, there are certain loopholes we can see in this Data Protection Act case. And see this article guys, India is pursuing FTAs with multiple countries, says Goyal. Who is this Goyal? Our Central Minister for which department, which ministry? Okay, it's Union Minister for Industries and Commerce. Okay, what is the keyword? Keyword is FTA. What is the full form of FTA? Free Trade Agreement. So here you have to see what is this Free Trade Agreement. And next you have to see with which countries India already signed this FTA. And next you have to see what are the advantages of signing of this FTAs, and you have to see what are the challenges of this FTAs. So with which countries India signed this FTAs, you can get prelims based question here. The question will be in this format. For example, consider the following countries with which India already signed FTAs, and they will give you 5 to 7 countries. They may ask 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, like that. They will specifically give that numbers, or else only 4, only 5, only 6, only 2, like that also you will be getting question. So you have to be very much careful with this kind of questions. UPSC have this tendency of asking this type of questions from your economy case. You can check PYQs also. Okay, so now let us see this article. Context says Union Minister of Industries and Commerce said India was holding negotiations with European Union, US, Oman, New Zealand, Chile, Peru, and a host of other countries to facilitate the free flow of capital, goods and services. Here you can use your basic common sense if you are getting that kind of questions. In that options, if US is there, with US do we have trade deal? Free trade agreement, do we have free trade agreement with US? No. Why? Because US is imposing 50% of tariff. If we had a free trade agreement, will US impose this much tariff on India? So like that, what are the news which is there that you already know, use that kind of common sense in examination. Okay, so if you eliminate this US, you can eliminate minimum 2 options there, so that you can come across this right option. So what are things that you are seeing, observing every day? Use that knowledge for eliminating of statements, because the fact is in UPSC prelims you will be having 100 questions. No one, even all India ranker 1, will be not knowing more than 25 to 30 questions for sure guys. But you have to clear this examination, means you need to get above 85 to 90 based on your category for sure. If you're general, means the better thing and the best thing is you have to get 95 above. Then how can you get all those things? By using your common sense. Just use your common sense in your examination and try to eliminate the statements. No one will teach about how this common sense. One example is this one only. So US will be imposing 50% tariff on our Indian goods. That you know from last 1.5 months, 2 months onwards, we are daily discussing that. If you are getting this kind of question, with which of the following countries India signed FTA, if US is there, you can directly eliminate that. So like that, we have to use our basic common sense. What are the knowledge you have? Try to use that to eliminate this. That will work guys. So try to use that while you're practicing your questions and as well as PYQs. Then your score will be obviously increased guys. Okay, and you have to make a note of this. European Union, US, Oman, New Zealand, Chile and Peru. If you get these countries also, means you can simply eliminate them. European Union not finalized, and even US not finalized. Oman, New Zealand, Chile, Peru. With these countries, India is holding negotiations. India is having talks to finalize this free trade agreement. Okay, if you see about this, what is this free trade agreement? Why India is moving towards this free trade agreement? So whenever we are signing this free trade agreement, first of all, what is this free trade agreement? What this trade includes? Trade includes two components. What are they? Imports and exports. So whenever freely moving goods are happening between the countries, free movement of services without any tariff or non-tariff barriers, then what happens? The price of these goods will be less, so that our goods will be competitive in other markets and our goods will be getting markets in other countries. So if you're getting markets in other countries, what happens? We can increase production, we can increase our GDP, we can increase our trade with other countries also, right? So for this, we need to have this kind of free trade agreements. Okay, first important advantage of having this free trade agreement is our Indian goods will be getting markets in international. That is, we can get increase in market access for our Indian goods. I'll give you one example. So India came up with UAE agreement that ensured duty-free access to around 90 percentage of Indian exports. For example, textiles, gems, and pharmaceuticals. What happened? That led to increasing of our Indian exports by 12 percentage from the first year of this CEPA, that is Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with this UAE. Okay, so first one is we can increase our market access, we can increase our exports to other countries. And next one is enhanced investment opportunities. So FTAs will also encourage foreign direct investments so that they will also provide stable and predictable environment for investors. For example, with Australia, we have this Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. So because of this agreement with Australia, we came up with elimination of tariffs on key sectors. So that what happens? Investor confidence will be increasing so that other country people can come to India and they can invest in that sectors where we have no trade barriers. And this one is improved competitiveness of Indian business. So because of this trade liberalization, FTAs will promote good competition. How this good competition can be ensured? For example, this is USA. I'm telling just for example, this is USA. And here we have India. And here we have China. India is exporting, for example, pens to US. China is also exporting pens to US. Okay, the cost of this Chinese products will be obviously less compared to that of Indian, for example. So the pen cost is 10 rupees, which is coming from China. So from India also, we tried something better. We went for mass production so that India is also exporting pen at 10 rupees cost. For example, let us take this case one. In this case one, there is no agreement between India and US. And what US is doing? US is importing, for example, 50 percentage of tariffs on our pens. 50 percentage means what happens? What will be the cost of now Indian pen in US market? 15 rupees, yes or no? Now one Indian pen in US market is 15 rupees. But China's pens are selling at just 10 rupees. Who will buy our Indian pens? No one will buy. Everyone will be buying this Chinese pens. So do these Indian pens are competitive with this Chinese pens? Not at all. Okay, let us take this second scenario. In the second scenario, let us think that there is an agreement between India and US. And now US is imposing 0% tariffs, no tariffs on our Indian pens. So now, how much price we will be selling our Indian pen in US market? Same 10 rupees only. So now our Indian pen is 10 rupees in US market and even Chinese pen is 10 rupees. Same cost, same kind of flexibility, same 0.7 nib, like that. Then our Indian pens are competitive to this Chinese pens or not? Yes. So here if we are having this kind of agreements, especially free trade agreements with the countries, our products, our Indian goods will become competitive in international markets. So this will be second advantage. Everyone will know that India's goods are so very good. So we can purchase them and we can try them so that our Indian goods will become competitive in international markets. And this one here is especially regarding the services. As you all know that normally we have different sectors in our economy. We have primary sector, it is agriculture based. We have secondary sector, it is based on manufacturing. Tertiary sector based on services. Quaternary sector and quaternary sector we have. Actually, India is very good at the service sector. Yes or no, compared to that of manufacturing sector, India focused on the service sector. So even we are providing services to other countries. What happens? Because of this free trade agreements, we can also talk about not only goods but even services in that agreement so that we can strengthen our service sector also, especially IT, especially health, education, whatever it may be. And not only that, our agriculture and rural sector will be also getting benefits. How? How our rural sector will be getting benefited? We can export our Indian agriculture goods. Okay, so we can export our Indian agriculture goods to other countries so that what happens, we can enhance rural income levels as well. One example here is India, Mauritius came up with an agreement that enhanced agriculture exports because of cutting down of tariffs on the products like sugar and as well as tea. So as you all know that Mauritius is an island nation. It is not having proper agriculture. So because of this, obviously it has to depend on imports from other countries, especially regarding this agriculture products. As you all know that India is famous in this agriculture. So that we occupied that market of agriculture food products in this Mauritius by this agreement with this Mauritius case. And this one is technology and knowledge transfer. Whenever we are having this FTAs, obviously we can also get technology transfer from other countries. So that it will be very much helpful for India's energy transition as well. And this one is obviously this FTAs will be supporting small and medium enterprises because the small and medium enterprises, they will generate around 90% of employment in this informal sector, and they'll focus on production of the goods, and they are contributing a lot for our GDP. So obviously this small and medium enterprises, they will be getting benefited. So we had agreement with this Singapore, India-Singapore agreement that particularly helped our small and medium enterprises like engineering, information technology, and even now we have market access to this Singapore as well. Okay, but we have certain challenges or concerns regarding this FTAs. What are they? First one here is if we are having this FTAs, free trade agreements. For example, India had FTA with China. Is that benefit for India? So what happened? China will dump these goods in our country. In the same way, if you are going for this FTAs with other countries also, sometimes it will lead to trade deficit. Trade deficit, imbalanced gains can happen. And not only that, if you're talking about developed economies, will they accept for this FTAs? No, there will be limited access to this developed countries. And not only that, small farmers and unorganized sector, they will be getting vulnerable because whatever the hi-fi industries are there, those products will be passing this certificates and certification everything, and they will be getting benefited. What about the small farmers? Will they can export directly to other countries? Again not. But in India, what is the problem? Majorly 80% of our farmers are small and marginal farmers. Only we have a small percentage of large farmers who are getting benefited with this FTA, not all. Again, this is one more problem. And this one here is because of this FTAs, certain sectors will get job losses because the goods from other countries will be flooding into our country because of this FTAs. So certain sectors will be getting job losses. And even sometimes monopoly and market power can also happen. Monopoly is nothing but only one company will be getting powerful, and those products will be going to other countries. Sometimes if they have nexus with the political parties, corporate political party nexus, that can lead to monopoly, guys. Okay, yeah, these are the things. And see this article, Gujarat Ambaji marble gets GI tag for its quality. Okay, have you heard about this Ambaji place? Ambaji, what is it famous for? Think, guys. Art and culture. Huh? Marble anta. Next. And చెప్పా. Not that. Other things which are famous in this Ambaji. So actually, marble from Ambaji, it is in state of Gujarat. This place is very prominent because of pilgrimage site. We have a Shakti Pit in this location, guys. Ambaji Mela. Yeah, have you heard this Ambaji Mela? It is one important Shakti Pit. Do you know this Shakti Pit? So it is one Shakti Pit. Shakti means which god will be revered in that region? Shakti means woman or male? Woman, men. Woman, okay. So we'll have goddess there. Shakti Pit is nothing but we will revere goddess there in that location. And actually, Ambaji is famous for the Shakti Pit. And in that region, we have marble. Which is the color? What is the color of this marble? Marble color. Marble stones, chola. White. Okay. Ambaji. Yeah, this is Ambaji white marble. So in that location, in that Shaktipit area, we can see this marble related carvings. They are very, very famous there. Okay, so finally that marble got GI tag from this area, guys. Okay, marble from Ambaji, Gujarat's prominent pilgrimage site and Shaktipit has been awarded GI tag for its high quality white stone. That is white, it is not black. Okay. So see the details here. GI, that is geographical indication, is a sign used on products that have a specific geographical origin. That means they have to be got from that so and so geographical location, and not only that, they need to have good quality and they should have a reputation. Then only they can apply for this GI tag. Okay. And GI tag are typically used for any agriculture product or any natural product or any manufactured goods or any goods of handicrafts or any industrial goods or any food stuff. Even Tirupati Laddu got this GI tag, you know that food stuff, and Bengali Rasgulla. So lots of the foods in different states got already GI tag, and even flowers. Do you know this? Mirchi and even pulses, rice, different products will get GI tags in different regions, guys. So it is given to agriculture products. It can be given to manufactured goods. It can be given to handicrafts or in industrial made and even food stuff. So if you get this GI tag for that so and so product, that will provide legal protection and it will prevent others from using the same name without permission. Now they have to take the permission to use that name. So that what happened? That entire geography will be getting name and fame, so that it will be boosting economy as well. So normally if you buy this GI tag product and other normal product, the price variation is very high. So price will be very high for this GI tag because they will give only pure thing. There will be no adulteration in that, and it will be protecting that community right. Yes, Kolhapur chappals also recently got this GI tag. What are the challenges of this GI tax in India? There is very low registration rate. India lags behind these nations like China, Germany, Hungary, etc. In China, there are around 9,785 products got GI tag. In Germany, 7,500. In Hungary, 7,200. But in India, very less. Just see how many products got this GI tag. And especially you have to make a note of the products from last year June 2024 till this year May, April 2025, which are the products got the GI tag. You have to make a list and you have to see what is that product, name of that product, whether it is agriculture or manufactured or handmade, and next you have to see from which state and what is the use of it, why it got this GI tag. You have to make a tabular format. You will be getting question in this format, guys. They will give you product name on one side, they will give you state on one side, and they will give you Y. And you have to identify all these three are matching or not. And they'll give you how many pairs are correct or how many pairs are incorrect. So you have to remember all these areas from 2024 June till April 2025. You have to do this work, guys. Okay. And next one here is regional disparities. And if you go from one state to another state, we have differences. In some states, we have more GI tags. In some states, we have less GI tags. In which states we have more? In southern states. Why? We have good literacy, good development, everything. So whenever we are having good development, good literacy, good economy, obviously we will be having more. States like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and UP have more GI registrations than compared to that of Jharkhand, Tripura. That means northeastern states have very less. And next one is GI violations. For example, Banarasi silk is copied in Surat. Actually, Banarasi silk, it is famous from which state? Banaras. No? Banaras. UP. Think once. Huh? Okay, so actually Banaras silk is like purely made from silkworms and they are handloom products. But if you go to Surat, whatever the textiles that are available in India, we can get duplicate copy by using of this power looms case. So that is one violation that we can see. And next one is lack of awareness. Many rural producers, they are unaware about the benefits of this GI tag. So because of this, they are not filing for this GI tag. For example, we have Kagga rice. It is a salt-tolerant variety from the coastal regions of Karnataka. Remains under-recognized so far. And next one is multiple states claim this GI of same product. So as you all know that states division happened, right? So states are carved out from existing states. So because of this, whatever the products they are having, they will be having common products. So in more than 2 or 3 states, they are filing for this same GI tag. And next one is after registration also, we are having certain issues regarding lack of knowledge, like how they have to continue that everything. So what is the way forward? What can be done? We can go for increasing awareness among the people regarding this GI tags, and we can go for strengthening of post-registration framework, and we can support especially poor rural people to file this GI tag, and we have to resolve the disputes between the different states. So even Kolhapuri chappals received this GI tag from both Karnataka and as well as Maharashtra because of high demand days. So if you are having that kind of issues, we have to go for resolving of this kind of issues. And next one is we have to go for even conservation centric approach regarding this GI tag. So these are the steps that we can take to promote this GI tags in India. See this article, guys, Great Nicobar Project and a Ministry in Knots. So this is not at all a new topic. Many a times we discussed this article in our news analysis. So first of all, let us see where this Great Nicobar is located. I'll show you the map. Can you see here map? So this is India. Can you see? This is Sri Lanka. This is Bay of Bengal region. Here we have islands. Red color part you can see is Andaman and Nicobar. Here North Andaman, we have South Andaman, Little Andaman, and here we have Nicobar, and at the end we have Great Nicobar. Okay, so in this region, we are going for development of our Great Nicobar project. So here you can see Bay of Bengal, here you can see Andaman Sea, and this Great Nicobar is very much near to which strait? Strait of Malacca. So Strait of Malacca is one important choke point. What are the choke points? They are very important for trade, guys. So we have majorly 3 important choke points in this Indo-Pacific region. First one is Strait of Malacca, next one is Bab el Mandab, and next one is Strait of Hormuz. These are 3 important locations which will be very much helpful for trade in this Indo-Pacific region. And this Great Nicobar is here, Strait of Malacca is here. It is very near, right? So if you are developing projects in this region, obviously we can improve our trade in this Indo-Pacific region. That is why we are coming up with this Great Nicobar project. And what we are going to do in this project? What we are going to construct, guys? First one is airport. Second one is mega transshipment port. Next one is power plant and new township. 4 things. First one is airport. Next one is transshipment port. Next one is power plant. Next one is development activities like township we are going to have. Okay, so now let us see about what is the importance of this Great Nicobar. Very important. Great Nicobar Island, it is India's southernmost tip now. And ecological, it is having lots of valuable things. For example, we have certain unique species like Nicobar megapode, Nicobar macaque, Nicobar tree shrew, and world's largest leatherback turtles are nesting here in this Great Nicobar region. That means it is having very unique ecological importance. And not only that, we have tropical rainforest in this region. Whenever we are having this tropical rainforest, then only we can say that we are going to absorb this carbon dioxide, or else what happens, atmospheric carbon dioxide will be improved. And we have immense carbon stocks in this region. It will be very much helpful for global climate regulation. And not only that, this Nicobar is part of Sunda Land biodiversity hotspots. So we have majorly how many hotspots in India? Himalayas, Western Ghats, Sunda Land. So here, this is part of Sunda Land biodiversity hotspot. It had been recognized by IUCN, guys. And even this Andaman and Nicobar Islands, if you see, Andaman is of tectonic origin because of tectonic plates. But Nicobar is formed because of coral islands, guys. So we can see coral reefs here, seagrass meadows, mangroves. They are acting as natural shields against cyclones, tsunamis, and coastal erosion. So because of all these things, Nicobar Islands is very, very important environmentally for our country. But we are going for this project in this region. So because of this, we are having lots of concerns regarding this project, guys. So let us see now what are the concerns we have. First one is, if you want to go for developmental projects, that region is very much rich in thick, dense rainforest. We have to go for cutting down of forest. That will lead to forest loss. Around 13,000 hectares of dense evergreen forest will be lost. You can imagine 13,000 hectares, 13,000 into 2.5, you can get acres. Because of this, what is happening here? There is massive habitat loss for important animals in that region. Over 1 million trees are estimated to be felled. 1 million. That will lead to forest fragmentation, and that will disturb ecological corridors, and that may lead to human animal wildlife conflict. And next one is, it is also a threat to marine and coastal ecosystem, especially Galathea Bay. It is one of the major 4 nesting grounds of this leatherback turtle. If you are going for construction of port, dredging, ship movement, obviously it will be disturbing this nesting sites of this animal. And not only that, this island lies in seismically active zone because of this plate tectonics. It can be severely affected by tsunamis or cyclones which originates in this Bay of Bengal region and Indian Ocean region. As in 2004 tsunami, it was hit, and our southern tip called as Indira Point already submerged in water. So we cannot take any chance of development in this region because it is highly disaster risk. And this one is ineffective compensatory afforestation. Government is not planning for proper CAMPA, that is compensatory afforestation. They are saying that if we are felling down 1 million trees in Nicobar, we are going to arrange them in another area. They said that they'll go for afforestation in Haryana and MP. Will these governments will accept? Will we get that amount of 13,000 hectares of land on mainland India? That is one more important problem regarding this. And very important problem here is we have to go for displacement of Nicobaris and Shompen tribes. Again, that is one more important problem in this project case. Okay. So this next article, flexible inflation targeting, a good balance. This article is talking about flexible inflation targeting model that we incorporated in India in 2016, guys. You have to see about what is this model is about. So RBI came up with this flexible inflation targeting framework. So if you see about the history, why we came up with this framework in India was During 1990s, we had balance of payment crisis. At that time, we don't have even the funds to pay for imports for more than 3 days. At that time, India came up with this LPG reforms. What are they? Liberalization, privatization, globalization. And after that, also in 2009, we had Great Depression because of subprime crisis in USA. Because of globalization, if something happens in one country, obviously it will be affecting another country. So we had global financial crisis. And India has at that time problems of high inflation. What is inflation? There is rise of prices of goods and services in the market. It's called as inflation. We have this problem of increased prices. Inflation is there. On another side, we have sluggish growth, very slow growth of our economy. Because of that, at that time, monetary policy is not having any choice. So it has to go for some other alternative mechanism to control inflation and as well as to improve growth in our country. At that time, in 2014, Urjit Patel Committee was formed. And Urjit Patel Committee came up with a report. In that report, they said that yes, we can go for inflation targeting model. We have to focus and we have to give that entire responsibility for this monetary policy to control inflation in our country. At that time, we came up with this flexible inflation targeting model. So, flexible inflation targeting model is very simple. So, what is the purpose of this monetary policy? Monetary policy is to control inflation in the market. Yes or no? So, how we can control inflation in market through this monetary policy? We have to increase or decrease interest rates. These interest rates are, for example, we have repo rate, we have reverse repo rate, whatever it may be. So here this flexible means nothing but if inflation is high, what we'll do? If inflation is high, we will decrease or increase interest rate. We will decrease interest rate. If inflation is low, we will increase interest rate, right? So in the same way, how based on inflation, how we are adjusting our interest rates, it is nothing but flexible inflation targeting that we came up in our India because of this recommendations of this Urjit Patel committee from 2014 onwards. 2014 they gave recommendations. After that we had intensive debates on that, and finally in 2016 we came up with this adoption of this flexible inflation framework. For that, we made changes to our RBI Act of 1934 because now this monetary policy committee is responsible of RBI, right? So because of this, we made amendments to this RBI Act of 1934 in 2016, and we adopted this flexible inflation framework in our country. Why we need this flexibility? Because if you are controlling this inflation tightly, what happens? We will be having lots of negative impacts. So if you are having these flexible things, we can go for proper maintaining of prices in our country, and as well as we can maintain fluid volatility. And we know that what happens in the next day, we don't know, because now if you see the present scenario, bomb blastings are happening, and lots of reports are saying that there are certain areas which are targeted by terrorists because of this Pahalgam issue, and we are going to have terror attacks in our country like that. So lots of reports are getting, and even we are sharing boundary with this Pakistan and China. We don't know when these countries will wage war on India. So because of all these things, if you are having a strict inflation control mechanism, can we fight against these externalities? No. So for that reason, they said that we need a flexible inflation targeting methods. It will be helpful for the betterment of our society at the large, and it will provide a room for prioritizing of growth, and as well as we can maintain the proper prices in our market. So from this 2016 onwards till 2025, so we had lots of achievements because of this flexible targeting framework. So first one is deflation is achieved. What is meaning of deflation? In your inflation topic, you will come across this kind of keywords: inflation, deflation, reflation, stagflation, de-inflation, like that. So here deflation is nothing but we are going to decrease this inflation. And each one here is we anchored expectations. So because of this flexible inflation targeting mechanism, it stabilized long-term inflation in our country. So that expectations of consumers, investors, everything had been maintained in our country. And even we increased transparency in our institutions. And even during this COVID-19 time also, and even this Russia-Ukraine war is happening, Israel-Gaza issue is happening, and India also, many a times we have issues with this Pakistan and China, even though we are targeting this inflation because of this flexible inflation targeting mechanism. And even RBI formally reported that government after breaching the upper band of 5 consecutive quarters also, yes, we are maintaining the good inflation from this COVID-19 pandemic onwards. So because of this COVID-19 pandemic, many countries' economies had been drastically fall down, and even they didn't come out of that shock of COVID-19. But India came out of it, and we are doing good, and we are expecting growth of 7.3 percentage of GDP in the next year. It is because of this flexible inflation targeting mechanism, guys. Okay, so these are the important topics that happened in our today's in the newspaper. By this, I'm concluding. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and please do like this class and share this class to your friends. And do subscribe to Rathore Science Academy. Don't forget. And you can follow us on our Telegram channel where we are providing the notes of the notes of this class. And not only this, in our YouTube channel, we are also providing daily one prelims based question in our both Telugu and as well as English official channels. You can follow us on our both channels, and we are also providing current affairs in short, mains question with model answer, and prelims question with answer in our Instagram page also. You can follow us on Instagram as well. So all those links are given in description box, guys. So please do follow us on different websites. Thank you so much, guys.